They were supposed to smile, pour tea, and say nothing controversial. Instead, some of them loved the wrong people, spent government money like royalty, consulted astrologers in the middle of the Cold War, and even carried deadly secrets from their teens. What if the First Lady role was never about perfection, but about hiding what the public must not see? Keep watching. Every next story is wilder than the previous one. Rachel Jackson, the bigamist who never made it to the White House. Andrew Jackson's enemies didn't attack his policies first. They attacked his wife. Rachel Donaldson first married Louis Robards in 1785, and the marriage fell apart fast. Robards was jealous and violent. Rachel left him and, believing the divorce was in progress, married Jackson. Only later did it turn out the divorce hadn't been finalized. That gave Jackson's 1828 opponents a perfect weapon. Pamphlets called her a woman of loose conduct. Southern newspapers wrote that a woman who cannot secure a lawful divorce cannot be First Lady. And one Adams supporter sneered that Jackson had stolen another man's wife. Jackson was furious. He said, "I can forgive my enemies, but I will never forgive those who slandered my wife." After the election, before the inauguration, Rachel died. Most historians say of heart failure. Jackson said of a broken heart. He wore black at his inauguration and blamed Washington society for her death. Question for the audience: did politics kill a First Lady before she could even step into the White House? James Buchanan, and the man Washington joked was our First Lady. Buchanan is the only unmarried president, but in Washington, everyone knew he wasn't exactly alone. For years, he shared a home with Senator William Rufus Devane King of Alabama. They hosted together, dined together, appeared at receptions together, and were so inseparable that fellow politicians gave them catty nicknames: Aunt Nancy and Miss Fancy. Andrew Jackson is said to have called King Miss Nancy, while South Carolina's William Henry Wadley joked that King was Buchanan's better half. When King was sent to France and later to Cuba, he was so ill he was sworn in as vice president in Cuba in 1853. Buchanan wrote to a mutual friend that he was now solitary and alone, having no companion in the house, and that he felt as if his life had lost its charm. Some biographers carefully call it a Boston marriage. Others are more direct and say it was a romantic partnership in everything but name. And here's the spice: certain Washington wives refused to dine with the two men at the same table, not because of politics, but because they thought the arrangement was unnatural. So, was America's only bachelor president actually the one who came closest to having a male First Lady? Mary Todd Lincoln, spending money while the nation bled. Mary wasn't just difficult, she was a political headache. While the Union was losing thousands of soldiers, she ordered expensive redecorations for the White House, new carpets, drapes, fine china, even fancy wallpaper from New York. The 1861 refurbishing cost around $20,000, a huge sum in wartime, and Congress had to quietly cover it. Newspapers called her Madame la Rebelle because she had relatives fighting for the Confederacy and at the same time was living off Union money. She was also extremely emotional in public. She wept loudly at official funerals and once at a reception snapped at a general's wife, telling her she wasn't properly dressed for the White House. The feud with Julia Grant was real. Mary didn't like her, considered her provincial, and refused to sit in the box with the Grants on April 14, 1865. That's why Grant left Washington that night and lived. There's an uncomfortable counterfactual here for the viewers. If Mary Lincoln had been more diplomatic that day, would history look different? Jacqueline Kennedy, the one First Lady who could tell a president no. Jackie was elegance, yes, but also control. She hated the term First Lady, calling it like a label on a jar. She smoked constantly, though the press hid it, drank vodka-based cocktails at private dinners, and surrounded herself with writers and European friends rather than political wives. The story with the Pakistani horses shows her character. The gift was diplomatically awkward. JFK's team wanted them sent back so as not to cause envy with other allies. Jackie flatly refused. She also orchestrated her own image. She personally approved TV shots of the White House tour in 1962 and made sure America saw her as cultured, not political. And then, the most shocking turn, marrying Aristotle Onassis in 1968. Many in Washington whispered she married for protection. Onassis had money, yachts, security, power outside U.S. politics. Jackie, having survived her husband's assassination and constant threats, chose safety over romance. That's a first lady choosing survival over fairy tale. Eleanor Roosevelt. I ache to hold you close. If you want a rare quote, Eleanor gives it. In a 1933 letter to journalist Lorena Hickok, she wrote, "Hick, darling, I miss you greatly. I want to put my arms around you and kiss you." In another, "I can't kiss you, so I kiss your picture." This isn't normal distant friend language for a first lady in the 1930s. Hickok, who worked for the Associated Press, at first covered Eleanor, then moved into the White House guest quarters because they were so close. Franklin Roosevelt reportedly asked that Hickok not make things more complicated. Historians still argue whether it was a physical relationship or an emotional one, but the volume, over 3,000 letters, speaks for itself. Eleanor also had other close friendships with women, including with activist Esther Lape. At the same time, she transformed the role, held solo press conferences, only for female reporters, traveled without the president, and even publicly disagreed with FDR on racial questions. So while America saw a kind, progressive first lady, there was also a woman living a private emotional life that 1930s society simply wouldn't have accepted publicly. Nancy Reagan, the astrologer inside the Reagan White House. This isn't a myth. It really happened. After the 1981 assassination attempt, Nancy became terrified of wrong days. She reached out to Joan Quigley, a San Francisco astrologer, through TV host Merv Griffin. From then on, Quigley was effectively on retainer. Don Regan, Reagan's chief of staff, later wrote in his memoir for the record that the president's schedule, takeoff times for Air Force One, State of the Union dates, even meetings with Gorbachev, was sometimes shifted because Mrs. Reagan had been informed it was a bad day. Reagan aides were ordered not to joke about it. Nancy justified it simply. "If it keeps my husband alive, I will do it." Imagine the Cold War mapped to Mars and Saturn. That's how close astrology got to the nuclear button. Laura Bush, the tragedy from 1963. The accident happened on November 6, 1963, near Midland, Texas. Laura, then 17, was driving with a girlfriend to a drive-in. She failed to stop at a stop sign, hit a Chevrolet driven by Michael Douglas, not the actor, a popular athlete and school class president. He died in the hospital. The police report said Laura was at fault. For decades, she barely spoke of it. Even her college friends didn't know. When George W. Bush ran for president, reporters dug up the police file. Political consultants were scared. A first lady who killed someone in high school is a brutal headline. Laura diffused it by telling the story herself in her memoir Spoken from the Heart. She wrote, "The guilt is with you forever." That's a very un-PR line, and because of that, it sounds real. For your audience, not every first lady arrived in Washington spotless. Melania Trump, fashion that turned into a political statement. Two big scandals, and both visual. First, the 2016 RNC speech. Side-by-side videos showed entire lines lifted from Michelle Obama's 2008 speech, "Your word is your bond. Your children can achieve whatever." Melania's team later said a staffer accidentally used Michelle's words as inspiration, but in the YouTube era that looked like straight plagiarism. Second, the jacket. June 2018, she flies to Texas to visit detained migrant children and steps out of the plane in that Zara jacket. "I really don't care, do you?" The timing was terrible. Trump critics said it was aimed at the children. Trump allies said it was aimed at the media. Melania later hinted it was aimed at the left-wing press. But the internet doesn't care about nuance. It remembered the picture. That's the danger for modern first ladies. A single frame can become the whole narrative.